Hello, everyone. This is the International Institute of Genealogical Studies with Brenda Wheeler talking about English records today. And in fact, it's more a mix of English records and methodology on how to prove a family story using the various English records. So, if anyone has any questions, anything they want me to cover, if while I'm talking, if you want to type messages into the chat area, when I've finished the presentation, I'll come and deal with those chat messages. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so today we're looking at a family story. And what I wanted to prove, this is actually a photo of my grandmother, Sarah Florence Lily. Was she Harry's or Padwick? She always said I should have been a Padwick, not a Harry's. So why was she saying that? But look at the photo. I could do a lot with restoration on this photo, but I don't want to because it's a very special photo. This was the photo that was actually carried by my grandfather in his wallet during the First World War when he was serving in France. So all of those creases mean something to me in that this was the memento that he carried during the war. So I don't really want to restore it because in itself that photo has a story. So let's have a look, a bit of my family tree. There's Sarah Florence Lily Harris, and I've underlined the Lily because that's what she was always known by. And I'm going to call her Lily for this purpose of this talk because, as you can see, her mother was Sarah. So if I start talking about Sarah Coburn and Sarah Harris, you're not going to know which I'm talking about. So Sarah is mum and Lily is her daughter. Now, as the family tree, as told to me originally, was that my grandmother Lily was married to Frederick Burroughs, and she was the daughter of Thomas Bruce Harris and Sarah Coburn. And you can see I've put some of her siblings in. I put another four of her siblings in, but there were many more siblings as well. So, where do we go? The problem was that the story was that my grandmother, my great grandmother, Sarah Coburn, was married to William Padwick, but left him for Thomas Harris. Because of this, William promptly joined the British Army and went out to India, where he died. So, is my grandmother Lily a Padwick or a Harris? So the research goal was to find out grandmother's correct surname. What did I have as a starting point? This is known as the short version of a birth certificate. This is the version that everybody got when they registered a birth. It was the free one. If you wanted one of the glorious, fully detailed ones, you had to pay for it. So or my grandmother ended up with the free version of her birth. And it just said it gave her name as Sarah Florence Lily Harris, born on the 30th of January 1892, and it was register number 343 in the register book. And that was all the information it gave. So for a start, you've got that question mark, who were her parents? So in the research plan, we need the full birth certificate, obviously, of Lily. we want to search the censuses for any sign of Sarah Coburn, Padwick, or Harry's. Is there a marriage between Sarah Coburn and William Padwick? Is there a marriage between Sarah Coburn and Thomas Bruce Harries? And was there a William Padwick who was in the British Army? So the first step was to get the full registry office, the full birth certificate. And here we have it. And you can see the connection between that short form of number 343, and there's the 343 in that first column. So that gives you the answer as to where that first number comes from. That's the number in the registry book. So we've got Sarah Florence Lilly, who was a girl born to Thomas Bruce Harries and Sarah Harries, formerly Coburn. And Sarah Harries, formerly Coburn, was the informant who lived at 60 Oakdale Road, Leytonstone. And Sarah Florence Lilly was born at 60 Oakdale Road. So this was a home birth. Thomas Bruce Harries was a soap boiler at that stage. And that's pretty much confirming that Lily was, in fact, the child of Thomas Harries and Sarah Harries, formerly Coburn. Right, so where did the Padwick come from? So I started going back through the censuses, and 1891, just about 10 months before the birth of Lily, there's Thomas B. Harries, and Sarah, his wife. Now, Thomas Harries is down as a grocer's warehouseman, and Sarah, his wife, a laundress, and living with them is Florence Coburn. So I've got the right Sarah, because there's her sister, Florence Coburn, who is also a laundress. It's her younger sister. You can start seeing why my grandmother was called Lily, because her mum was Sarah, her sister was, and her auntie was Florence. So that's why she got called Lily. So, well, there we are. There's proof, isn't it? Let's look at the marriages. And on the 27th of August, 1888, I have Sarah Coburn and William John Padwick marrying. William John Padwick is down as a warehouseman. His father's deceased. His father was also William John Padwick. And Sarah Coburn, no occupation. Women didn't have occupations in those days. Sarah Coburn, and yes, that's her father, Theophilus Thomas Coburn. And he was a carman. So I've got the signatures of William John Padwick and Sarah Coburn. And the witnesses, always look for the witnesses on a marriage certificate. I've got Frederick William Ryan, I don't know who he is. And there's Florence again, the beloved sister of Sarah, Florence Coburn, her sister, as one of the witnesses. So that certainly looks like my Sarah Coburn, my great grandmother, but she's marrying William Padwick. So this was in 1888, but we've seen in 1891 census where that Sarah is living with Thomas Bruce Harries. So what's happened in those 3 years? Here we are, just confirming, 27th of August, 1888 was the marriage of Sarah to William John Padwick. By the 5th of April, 2.5 years later on, Sarah is living with Thomas Harries as his wife. And just, 10 months later, Sarah Florence Lily Harries was born. But I can't find a marriage between 1888 and 1892 for Sarah to marry Thomas Harries and become his wife. Oh dear. Was William Padwick in the army? Okay, let's have a look and see. Looking at the Chelsea Pensioners British Army Service records, there we have the attestation paper of a William Padwick joining the Royal Artillery, but he joined the Royal Artillery on the 22nd of February 1888. So this guy was in the army. If he's the guy that married my great-grandmother in August 1888, he's already in the army, but he's describing himself on the marriage certificate as a warehouseman. So perhaps this isn't the right William, but we'll follow through on the information that we've got here. We've got William Padwick was born in Guildford in Surrey, and he's 24 years old and 9 months. And it's got it down. What is your trade or calling? He's put himself down as a carman. In other words, driving a cart, that sort of thing. So we've got a signature for William Padwick. So let's compare it with the marriage certificate. The marriage certificate he signed as William John Padwick, but on the army, this gentleman signed himself as William Padwick. There's a little curl on the W here and a curl up here. So yes. And the P, yeah, it's all slanting the same way. So it's possibly the same signature. Let's have a look a bit more at the papers. What was William Padwick actually doing? So he signed on the 20th of February 1888 to the 24th of September 1888. What happened then? He's been married about a month, as far as we know, August through to September. But then on the 25th of September 1888, he left for India. So he'd been married to Sarah Coburn less than a month before he left for India. And following down, 12th of May 1892, what happened then? He died at Lucknow of enteric fever on the 12th of May 1892. So is this in fact the William I'm looking for? We'll have a recap. He joined the army in February 1888, and we've got a William Padwick marrying Sarah Coburn in August 1888. And less than a month after that marriage, he left for India. He died in India in 1892, May 1892. So, in fact, if this is the same William Padwick, he was still married to Sarah Coburn in May 1892 when he died. He was in India for 3 years and 231 days, so he didn't get any leave in that time. He was in India. So if he was in India, he couldn't have been the father of my grandmother, who was born in February 1892. William Padwick was born in Guildford in Surrey. So let's see if we can find William Padwick. In the 1881 census, the Padwick family, all 3 children born in Guildford, Surrey. We've got William J. Padwick, father, mother Emma, daughters Helen, Mary A., and son William, who was 18 and a packer in a tea store. Go back 10 years. The family again confirmed here, born in Guildford in Surrey, daughters Helen, Mary, and William, all born in Guildford in Surrey. So, can we find the baptism of William Padwick? There we are. Born 18th of March. Thank you, Mr. Vicar. You've put down when he was born as well, although that is only secondary information because he is being told by William and Emma Padwick, the parents, that this was when William, their son, was born. Second-hand information. Primary information would be that the vicar baptised this child as William Padwick on the 14th of August 1863 in Guildford in Surrey. So this is obviously the William Padwick who signed up for the army. So William Padwick, born in Guildford, entered the army in 1888. Is this the same William who married Sarah Coburn in August 1888? Now, William had a sister. So let's see if we can find anything with the sister. There's a marriage here in 1882 for Helen Elizabeth Padwick. Father William John Padwick, a warehouseman. Now, if you remember from Sarah Coburn's marriage certificate, William John Padwick was deceased at that time. He was a warehouseman, yes, but he was deceased. In this instance, we don't know who signed the marriage register. It could have been her brother, William John Padwick, or it could have been the father, William John Padwick. We don't know. But William John Padwick is not down as deceased on that marriage certificate. But she married Frederick William Ryan. Who was the witness on the marriage certificate of William Padwick and Sarah Coburn? William Frederick Ryan. We've got the tie-up. But William John Padwick, he's not listed as deceased here, so at some point or other, did he die between 1882 and 1888 when his son got married? There we are, William John Padwick, age 54, the age is right. I didn't get the death certificate, but here's the index that's showing he died in 1884. 1892, let's go for a bit more proof that William John Padwick, his son, died in India on the 12th of May, 1882. There is a memorial just outside of Lucknow to all of the K Battery of the Royal Horse Artillery who died in Lucknow. And there we have a driver. Remember, William Padwick was a carman. There we have as a driver, died the 12th of May, 1892, W. Padwick. And they died, these sacred to the memory of the above officers, non-commissioned officers, gunners, drivers, and families of the K Battery, Royal Horse Artillery, who died while the battery served in Lucknow from October 1891 to November 1896. So we've got the proof that he died in 1892. Well, the next family story then comes into play. That Florence Coburn, Sarah's sister, went round to Thomas and Bruce Harries in 1897, just after the birth of their fourth child, and said, "Oi, it's about time you two got married. Me and my Will are getting married in December. Why don't we make it a double wedding?" And when we look in the Register of Marriages for St Mary the Virgin in Walthamstow, we find Thomas Bruce Harries and Sarah Padwick, who is, yes, she's now a widow, finally marrying, and we have as a witness William Francis Mills, who promptly then, on the same day in the same church, married Florence Coburn, Sarah's sister. So, was Sarah a Padwick or a Harries? Your comments. Don't forget to unmute yourselves. Nobody's willing to commit themselves by the looks of it.
Better get a DNA to add more information.
Well, we've proved that Mr. Padwick left for India in 1888. Lily wasn't born until 1892. And when you look at the conception tables, the conception took place very shortly after the 1891 census, when we see Sarah and Thomas living together. And the birth certificate does give Thomas, he's acknowledged him as the father of the child, Sarah Florence Lily Harries. So, although her mum technically was not married to Thomas Harries at the time, and she was actually Sarah Padwick, Thomas has acknowledged paternity. He's on that birth certificate. So he's acknowledged paternity and saying that this is his child, and therefore Sarah Florence Lily is Sarah Florence Lily Harries, not Sarah Florence Lily Padwick. Okay, so, but it just shows you how bringing together the records that are available and the methodology behind it. And the other thing that I could just bring up and share is another one that I just, let me just make sure I've got that up there so that I can show you. Show me that one. I think that's the one I want. Okay, what I did was I put it all together in a timeline. And you can see how the timeline works. You put the years in a line, any other date, and then the event, etc., and your source citations. So you can see the time frame that I set out to prove that William Padwick was not in England at the time of Lily's conception, and that Sarah Coburn, her mother, was living with Thomas Harries at that time. So just come back out of that now. So bringing together the records like that and looking especially at those witnesses, I actually looked at all of the Ryan family or the Padwick family. And then when I came to the marriage of Helen, the William's sister, Helen Padwick, is when I discovered that William Ryan, who was then a witness at the wedding of Sarah Coburn and William Padwick, and that tied it all together, as that definitely was the William Padwick I was looking for from that army record. So just tying everything together and piecing it all together, sometimes just get out whatever records you've got and just put them together and see what comes up. Any questions? Anything else I could have done, do you think? Seem to have proved my case.
This is Larissa. I don't know about English records, but the problem I just solved, um, I had two different maiden names for this scale, so it's a lot like this problem, only it's set in the US. I had two maiden names, um, and come to find out the name that she gave on a pension application that she gave, that was her baptismal name. The other name that was given was the sponsor at her baptism. That the man she married, that was the other last name they used. So it was her godparents' last name. So there was a
Yeah.
reason why, the two different names were there.
Yeah, it's interesting how these family stories come out, and then you have to really search through the records to prove uh, what is truth. And that with that one, in actual fact, Lily could have taken either of those surnames. She could have taken her mother's married surname of Padwick, or her father's surname, who was not at that stage married to her mother. So just interesting. Uh, and it was fascinating to be able to break down that family story and follow it through to see how, because Lily would have been about 6 years old when Sarah and Thomas finally married. So she would have had that recollection of that marriage of her mum and dad taking place. And that's where the family story has come from. Because, but the other thing that didn't hold together was that, yes, Sarah had married William Padwick, and because she'd taken up with someone else, this man went off to India, but joined the British Army and went off to India. But the guy was already in the British Army in the February, and they didn't marry until the August. So it looks as though, because Sarah was never put down as the next of kin on the army records, it looked as though that marriage took place without the permission of the army. And that I think is what happened. Because if you joined the army, you had to ask permission to get married. And that permission is not showing up anywhere. And the next of kin on William's army record was always his mother, Emma. So that's where things get a bit iffy. Did they actually apply to the army for permission to marry, or did they marry after he got notification through that he was just about to go to India? So it's interesting. We'll never know exactly what happened there, but I've brought it together as much as I can. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming today. I hope you enjoyed my little, it's not often I bring the family along, but I hope you enjoyed my little family today and how I proved the family story. And just by going through those different steps, take it baby steps. Just because you find one record, don't stop looking and put the whole story together. So thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to me, Brenda Wheeler, from the International Institute of Genealogical Studies. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.